Hello and welcome to my weekly video blog, and today I'm going to talk about 8 perimenopause and menopause symptoms that can be impacted by too much caffeine. If you like my tips and advice, then please subscribe and remember to hit the bell icon so you can be notified of all my new videos. How many cups of coffee are you drinking a day? You might be really surprised to learn how much these can impact on the way you feel and the symptoms you may be experiencing on a daily basis. I've recommended reducing caffeine for many years, just because I know from my own personal experience that too much certainly didn't do me any good at all. So I'm going to look about 8 symptoms that can either be triggered solely by caffeine or can be made worse. And I'm going to talk about how just taking less and the right time to take your caffeine can have a much more positive effect. And I'm not talking here about giving up completely. I would never ask anyone to do anything that I couldn't do myself. And for me, I really love a good cup of coffee. I enjoy it so much, but I've learnt over the years when not to take it. So some of the common sources of caffeine, which you might not be aware of. So we know, obviously, coffee and tea. Drinking chocolate. Chocolate will have caffeine in it. Fizzy drinks and these energy drinks, sometimes they have 3 or 4 times as much caffeine as a cup of coffee. And also some medicines have caffeine in them. So if you're taking maybe a combination of different prescribed medication, it may be a good idea to have a look at the ingredient list just to see if caffeine is one of them. So the problem is that we become so much more sensitive to so many things when we're going through the perimenopause and menopause. And I've, learned over the years from everybody getting in touch just how much caffeine can impact on everything. Some of you may find that you have to give it up altogether because you really just can't cope with the side effects. For some of you, you may find just reducing 1 or 2 cups a day can make a huge difference. So the main symptoms: flushes and sweats. This is a really big one. And very often these will be triggered maybe half an hour to an hour after you've had a cup of coffee, sometimes even sooner. We've got anxiety, kind of jittery, panic attacks, palpitations is a really common one. And that was the thing that made me click with caffeine, was getting palpitations. Just remember that caffeine also drains potassium from your body. And along with dehydration, that can be a big factor in palpitations. If you're getting those on your own on a regular basis, just be aware of that. Headaches, really big one with caffeine. Mood swings, the up and down. Poor night's sleep. Now, one of the things that happens with caffeine is that when you take it, the effects of the caffeine can be whizzing around your system 7 or 8 hours after you've had that cup of coffee. So you imagine having a cup of coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That is going to impact on your sleep if you're trying to get to sleep at 11 o'clock at night. It can be bladder problems. Caffeine is really acidic, and one of the things that can happen in the perimenopause and menopause is that our bladder can become much more sensitive. So the caffeine and the coffee and all the other chemicals that are in coffee and tea can literally be irritating your bladder, which can make you run to the toilet a lot more than you would normally. Caffeine can affect bone health as well. It can impact on the way your bone copes with calcium uptake. So that's a really important one if you're thinking about preventing osteoporosis. And the other thing is that caffeine will have a big impact on our blood sugar and insulin control. So caffeine will rev up your blood sugars, but there will then be a really big dip. And it's that big dip, again, that can trigger a lot of the symptoms that I have just talked about, plus sugar cravings. So for those of you that are trying to control your weight, that extra cup of coffee a day that you may be having could be a contributory factor. So what can you do in this situation? Please don't go away today and say, right, I'm giving up my coffee, because you will have a miserable couple of weeks. Caffeine's like a drug, and if you stop it really quickly, you will get severe withdrawal symptoms like headaches, mood swings, maybe even the jitters. So if you want to cut out your coffee, do 1 cup a day a week, and do it really, really slowly. That way your body will get used to having less caffeine. Never, ever, ever, if this is the only thing to change, never have a cup of coffee first thing in the morning when you get up. Your body will be severely dehydrated for all those hours without water. If you then take a cup of coffee, it's going to rev up your nervous system quite dramatically, which is often already on alert first thing in the morning. It's also going to spike your blood sugar levels, which is going to make you crave things, and you're going to have a big dip shortly afterwards. So it's really important. If this is the only change you make, it can be quite substantial. Is first thing in the morning, the first drink that you have will be your water, just your plain water, and then have your coffee after food. That way the food is going to buffer the caffeine, so you're not going to get a really sudden caffeine hit as well. Track your caffeine intake. It's quite interesting, because most symptoms from caffeine you will find will happen within about an hour or two, if not sooner. I know for me, I learned a long time ago that having a cup of coffee in the afternoon just gave me palpitations. And I find even now, if I have a cup of coffee, maybe about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning after I've had breakfast, about 15 minutes later, I get, it's nice in the winter, I just get a feeling of heat for 2 or 3 minutes, that's fine. I can cope with that, but I certainly couldn't cope with hot flush. So you might actually find that an hour or two after the caffeine, that's when you get your hot flush, or your panic attack, or your anxiety, or the cravings for the sweet things. You can substitute with non-caffeine drinks, things like rooibos. It's really nice. That's your sort of tea substitute. And you can get that in different flavours. Rooibos, you can get it in things like Earl Grey and ginger. So it's at rooibos I really like. You can also get bamboo coffee, which we have, our lovely coffee substitute drink here. You can also look at dandelion coffee is another substitute. And these ones, the likes of the bamboo and the dandelion coffee, you can still have them with your milk if that's how you normally have your coffee. Cut your coffee out after 12 o'clock. Don't have coffee after 12. Remember the 8 hours rule. So if you have a cup of coffee, say at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you have another one 3 or 4 hours later, and another one 3 or 4 hours later, at some point you're going to have the caffeine from 3 cups of coffee whizzing around your system. So no wonder if you tend to drink a lot of coffee in the morning, you might find that 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon is when you start to get your sweats and a lot of these particular symptoms. And also by that point, you're probably going to have a huge energy slump as well. I had one lady, all she did was cut out her after dinner cup of coffee. And within less than a fortnight, her night sweats had completely disappeared. So she was over the moon, and she just decided to have her cup of coffee a lot earlier in the day. So this is a really important one. If you love your coffee, have it before 12 o'clock, and then you can have your other drinks during the rest of the day. And remember to stay hydrated, which is really important. So if you are drinking coffee, have a good drink of water maybe an hour or two later, just so that you avoid the potassium drain and the dehydration that's possibly going to trigger your palpitations. So I hope you found this one helpful. I know for me, just going down to 1 cup of coffee many years ago made a huge difference to how I could cope with everything. So if any of you have stories or tales about caffeine, what did you do to help yourself? What did you realise it triggered? Was there some strange symptom you got that you finally tied to caffeine? Please share your stories. You know I always love them. And I'll see you later. Have a lovely week.